A warm greetings to one and all. In this session, let's learn about class and objects. Topics to be covered in this session are Introduction to class, syntax for class, introduction to objects, syntax for objects, few real-time examples for class and objects, and finally, let's check out example programs for class and objects. As a part of introduction, we all know that class forms the basics for object-oriented programming. And class is a template for an object, or it is also called as blueprint of an object. And an object is always an instance of a class. The picture represents the analogy of blueprint to home. As we all know that the blueprint represents the class, and each home built based on this blueprint corresponds to an object. It represents a specific instance with its unique characteristics. Just as multiple homes can be constructed from the same blueprint, multiple objects can be instantiated from the same class, each with its own state but sharing the same behavior defined by the class. And we all know that class is user-defined data type. A class is a collection of common properties and common behaviors of an object. Once a class is defined, any number of objects can be created by using those behaviors and properties. And finally, we all should know that class is a logical entity and it does not occupy memory. Now let's learn syntax for declaring the class. Class, class name. Class is a keyword. Class name is the name of the class, followed by open curly parenthesis. Without access specifier, we can declare variables and method in the class. They have default access specifier. The default access specifier is private. The private variables and the methods which are declared in the class can be accessed within the class alone. They cannot be accessed outside the class. Data type variable name ended with semicolon as the variable declaration part. Then return type method name parenthesis ended with semicolon. So this is the default function declaration part. We can have the function definition also here if we require that function as default function. Next, access specifier for variable declaration. So the variable can be declared by giving its data type variable name ended with semicolon. We can initialize the value for the variables also. The syntax is data type variable name 2, which is equivalent to value, then ended with semicolon. So similarly, we can have n number of variables inside a class. So the variables are called as data members. Next, the access specifiers for member function. Return type method name 1 with list of arguments ended with semicolon. So this is function declaration part. We don't have definition here for this function. Next, return type method name 2 list of arguments followed by opening parenthesis, and it has statement 1, statement 2 up to statement n. So the statements are function definition ended with curly parenthesis. So the list of methods are called as member function and the list of variables declared inside the class are called as data members. So the first one is a function declaration here since we have ended with semicolon and we don't have the function definition inside the class. The second one is function definition and declaration which is being done inside the class. Finally, the class is ended with curly parenthesis followed by object name 1, comma, object name 2 up to object name n. So we can declare the object at the end of the class also, which is optional, but still we can declare here also. Finally, it is ended with semicolon. Hope you are clear on syntax for declaring the class. Next, objects. Object is an actual entity which has physical existence in a real world. One object should be distinguished from other object. The picture represents the analogy of a blueprint to a home. As we know, the blueprint represents a class. Each home built based on this blueprint corresponds to an object representing a specific instance with its unique characteristics. Yes, this object is called as house, this object is called as bungalow, and this object is called as hut. Just as multiple homes can be constructed from a same blueprint, multiple objects can be instantiated from a same class, each with its own state but sharing the same behavior by defining the class. Creating object is mandatory to make use of a members of class. Each object is an instance of a class. For every object, memory will be created separately, and every object has attributes, behavior, and identity. Attributes holds its own value, behavior performs certain functions, identity has unique ID for its physical existence in the real world. Data or variable which is defined within a class is called as instance variable, which is used to store the attributes of the objects. When a class is defined, no memory is being allocated to it, but when it is instantiated, a memory is being allocated. Now let's learn the syntax for declaring the object. So we can create object inside the main method. So the syntax for creating the object is class name space object name ended by semicolon. We can access the method and variable using the object. So first let's see the syntax to access the method using object. The syntax is object name dot method name. Within the parenthesis, we can have the list of arguments ended with semicolon. And the syntax to access the variable using object is object name dot variable name. We can see the example of declaring the objects and accessing the methods and variables in the example program in upcoming slides. Now let's have a real-time example using class and objects. We all know that classes are blueprint for creating objects, and objects are instance of class that has attributes and methods associated with them. Let's consider the student class to represent the student entity. It has attributes such as name, register number, mark 1 and mark 2 to store the student details. Then we have defined the methods within the class to perform certain calculations. Total calculates the total marks by adding mark 1 and mark 2. Next, average. It is used to calculate the average of student by dividing total by 2. A class can have multiple objects and each has its own attributes and shares the behavior defined by the class. Now let's create instance for the class student. The first instance, that is object 1, is named as Raju. Raju has his own attributes as followed. So the Raju holds a name as Raju. He is object 1. His roll number is 101. Mark 1 is 99. Mark 2 is 100. Then total marks secured by Raju is calculated by adding mark 1 and mark 2. That is 99 plus 100 is equal to 199. Then average is calculated by total divided by 2. That is 199 divided by 2 is equal to 99 by 0.5. Next, let's create instance for the class student, that is object 2 named as Pavi. Pavi has her own attributes, that is his name is Pavi as mentioned above. Her roll number was 102. He has secured 80 in subject 1 and he has secured same 80 in subject 2. So her mark 1 is 80 and mark 2 is 80. Now let's calculate total for Pavi. So that is 80 plus 80. Mark 1 plus mark 2 is equal to 160. Then we can calculate the average, that is total divided by 2, that is 160 divided by 2 is equal to 80. So from this example, we can see that both object 1 and object 2, that is Raju and Pavi, has their own attributes. They are specific to them. It is unique for them. And they perform certain methods which are all given or which have been defined inside the class, that is total and average. This is common to both since it is defined inside the class. Hope you are clear in this real-time example. Now let's see how to write an C++ program using class and objects. By using class and objects, we can write C++ program in two ways based on member function definition. So the member function can be either defined inside the class or it can be defined outside the class. Using class and objects, we can write C++ program in two ways based on object creation. So the object can be either created at the end of the class, which is optional, or else it can be created in the main function directly. Finally, we can conclude that we can choose any way to write the C++ program using class and object. That is up to the convenience of the user. Now let's have an example program using class and objects. We all know that hash include represents the preprocess statement and IOString represent the header file. Using namespace std provides the scope to the identifiers which are all used inside the program. Next, class declaration part. Class capital A. Class is a keyword and capital A is the class name. It is followed by open curly parenthesis. And next, public is access specifier given for variable declaration. The variable A is declared as integer data type and assigned with value 10. Next, public is the access specifier given for function declaration and definition part. Void add-off is the function definition and declaration part. Here, we have defined the function add as a is equal to a plus 5. That is, a is incremented by 5 and stored in the variable a. Next, void showoff ended with semicolon. This is function declaration part. Here we didn't define the function inside the class, whereas the add function is declared and defined inside the class, but the void show is being only declared inside the class. Finally, the class is ended with closed curly parenthesis followed by object creation. So the object name which we have declared here is, which we have created here is small r followed by semicolon. Next, the function which is declared inside the class is being defined outside the class using scope resolution operator. The function show belongs to the class capital A and the return type of the function show is void. So void A scope resolution show. The function show displays the value of the variable A to the user using cout statement. Next, int mainof. We all know that it is the starting point of execution for any program. Next, object creation. So for the class capital A, we have created an object small s. Next, using the object small r, we have accessed the function showoff. Next, using the object yes, we have accessed the function add and show. Next, return 0 represents that the program has been successfully executed. Now let's see how the program will be executed. As I told you earlier, the starting point of the program execution is int main. So the first line is we are creating the object yes for the class A. Then using the object R, which has been already created during the class declaration part. So using that object R, I'm accessing the method show. So show what it does, it displays the value of the variable A to the user. Currently, the value of the variable A is 10. So it is displayed in the output as shown here. Next, using the object, yes, I'm accessing the method add. So the add function performs the increment of 5 to A. The value of A already it is 10. Now it is added to 5. So totally it is 15. Now the value of the variable A is 15. Next, using the object yes, I am accessing the function show. So the show function displays the value of A variable to the user. Now the value of the variable A is updated to 15. So that is what printed here as displayed to the user in this output. Finally, return. It specifies the successful execution of the program to the user. Now I want to make you remember 4 points which we have seen in the earlier slide. The first point is function definition inside the class. We can notice that the void add of. So the add function is defined inside the class. Next, we can define the function outside the class also. So we can see here the show function has been defined outside the class. The next point is object creation. So we can create the object at the end of the class. It is optional, but anyway, we can create the object at the end of the class also. If we are creating multiple objects, it can be separated by commas and ended with semicolon. The next one is object creation in main function. So we can create object in main function also. So here also we can have multiple objects for a same class. So this is what we have seen in the previous slide. Hope you all are clear for writing the C++ program using class and objects. Thank you all.